From self-harm to self-love, how my self-harming part returned to her innocence. This is a tale of overcoming darkness, finding love within, and guiding a wounded self back to the light. Following story is my personal account of my past experience of trauma. We recognize that some content may be challenging or triggering for some. Our goal is to inform and engage, especially about the healing potential of parts work, and not to cause distress. In the end, this is a story of hope, growth, and healing. Please take a moment to consider your comfort and well-being before watching. It's completely okay to choose not to view this content or to watch it with someone for support. Remember, your mental and emotional health is paramount. Your experience and feelings are valid, and we honor your decision, whatever it may be. If you do choose to proceed, we encourage you to do so at your own pace and in a safe, supportive environment. My friends were like, "Oh my God, you have to tell him." They were urging me with this like compassion, but it was like firm. And they were talking about me telling my dad. And they didn't know what I knew about my dad, about the narcissism, the alcoholism, the emotional incest. But now that my secret of self-harm was out, I figured I might as well tell everyone. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? Even if my dad was the last person on earth that I wanted to tell. And I did want to get better. So like maybe this would be a good experience. Maybe he has changed. But when I told my dad about my self-harming habit, he actually got angry and defensive. Instead of listening to me, he just cut me off, and he just started talking about stories about how when he was so emotionally numb as a kid that what he had to do just to feel something. And like in addition to being very high on the narcissism scale, my dad is also a pathological liar. So it's like, who knows if any of those stories were true. But what was true in this house was that he was the only one allowed to feel pain around here, and his pain had to be the biggest. He was the only one allowed to take up space. So after he told me all those stories in like a very tight-lipped voice of disapproval, he asked to see the marks that I cut into myself. And when I showed him the marks on my thigh, he straight up laughed out loud. And he's like, "Those are only surface cuts, and real cutters cut so deep that they need stitches. So like, come back to me when you have a real problem." And like that warm wash of shame flooded my senses. My parts were like, is self-harm just another thing that I've failed at? And he was like, "Besides, real cutters don't tell anyone. Like real cutters keep it to themselves at all costs. So just the fact that you've told people means you're just another stupid teenager looking for attention." And like, God damn, that hit deep. But then also like this salty stubbornness like bloomed in me, and I was determined to show him just how deep I could go. A wise part of me knew I needed some serious help, but unfortunately back then the only way that I knew how to ask for help was through cutting, was through making my painful insides look like pain on the outside. And so as soon as my dad left the house, I grabbed a kitchen knife and carved the lines into my left thigh that connected to form this question of like all caps deep, with a question mark, as in like, is this deep enough for you, Dad? And I just went over and over these lines, like wiping the blood as I went. And 15 years later, I went back for her. I went back for this part of me stuck in that moment. 15 years later, I find myself in a woman's circle in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, starting a meditation that's supposed to help heal core unworthiness wounds. And during the meditation, I found myself back in that room with the part of me that was carving deep into her thigh. And I stared at my past self with just heartbreak and compassion. Like she was so far from home and she didn't have anybody to help her find her way. Over the span of the 15 years between her and I had gone no contact with my dad, and I had accomplished some really significant healing, especially given the emotional incest. I have healed so much, and despite all odds, like I have found my way back to the love inside of me. I really, really have. I have become the woman that she needed back then. I was now someone capable of loving her in the way that she needed the most. But when I was in that room with her in that meditation, I just wanted her to know that she doesn't need to feel all of this alone anymore, that I am here now. I have come back for her. So I just kind of revealed myself to her in the inner world in my mind's eye there, and I could tell she was relieved to have me there, even if she didn't really want to show it because she was trying to be tough. Like she knew who I was. She had seen me around the inner world over the years because I've loved other past selves in the ways that they needed, and now it was her turn, and she knew it, and it was was a real emotionally intimate experience, but she didn't know how to handle that intimacy. And so I just asked her, what was it like to be her? What are you feeling? What do you need me to understand about what it's like to be you? And she said she felt hatred. She was just overcome with self-hatred. And then underneath that, she started to share about how lonely she feels, like all alone, nobody to see her, nobody to care. And that's when she finally started crying. And we shared in these intimate emotions together. It was really sweet. And eventually I asked her, what she needed. And she wiped her tears and she like put on her tough face again, and she's like, I just need to clean up all this blood. And I smiled and was like, no, sweetie, like, what do you really need? What does your heart need? And her chin like quivered as she thought about it, and she's like, I guess I need a hug. And so tears were like streaming down her cheeks as we stood up and we embraced one another, and her sobs like started to come harder, and it's like, yes, you don't have to feel this alone anymore. And the blood was still like dripping down her leg from the fresh wound, and I showed her my own thigh, which still have scars in them that spell deep. And then I got a tattoo I covered them up with. And the tattoo is a Trinity symbol, and it symbolizes absolute belonging and worthiness. And so I showed her this and I was like, twinsies. And she started laughing. It's like the laughing through the tears thing. And then it was that moment when she realized she really wasn't alone anymore. Like, there is someone else who knows what it's like to be her. Someone else who knows what it's like to be lost in the same darkness. Someone else who bears her same scars too. And so then I brought her out of the past and into the present moment. I showed her the apartment I'm staying in Mexico. We went up to, our private rooftop thing together, and she like surveyed the landscape with a smile, and she's like, we're really doing it, aren't we? Like, we're really living our dream. And I was like, yeah, we are. We've come so far. And she took my head in her hands, and she was like smiling and grateful and telling me how happy she was with this present day life. And like, as she spoke, I watched her get younger and younger and younger and younger until she was just a little girl again. And she, just a little girl that knows nothing about darkness or loneliness or feelings of unworthiness, whose thighs aren't riddled with self-harm scars. Like a little girl whose innocence has never been broken. And like, I just grabbed her in my arms, just like basking in this connection and this redemption, because this part of me no longer had to bear all that pain anymore, nor the scars that come from it. She was clean and pure and innocent because I am bearing those scars for her now, because I know how to carry them, because I've already turned them into something beautiful. She doesn't need to bear any of that pain anymore. I've already alchemized it into strength and power and authenticity. And then with just this final sigh of like contentment, she just turned into light and integrated into my body, like a little girl come home at last. And like, I am so proud of the woman I've become. I truly have become the woman I needed as a younger woman. Like, there is no greater feeling of redemption than that. It has been a rocky journey, to say the least, but now that I'm here, every second was so worth it. And I just gotta say, like, what has helped me in my healing journey the most is a healing modality called parts work. And so if you are really struggling with overwhelming emotions, parts work can help, because it is such an effective way to connect your emotional pain with the love inside of you, which is where true healing happens. That's exactly what was happening in this whole experience with this part of me. And I don't want anyone to have to navigate their overwhelming inner landscape and emotions alone and without the proper tools to actually transform their inner turmoil into just lasting inner peace, to see these parts of them that are carrying so much pain return to their innocence, because you have embodied the woman, the man that those parts needed back then. And I gotta say, like, I was able to do all of this because of parts work. And that's why I do what I do. And I'm a parts work coach, and I share about parts work every chance that I get, because with everybody that you meet, you never know the parts of them that are carrying so much pain. And like the parts of you that are carrying so much pain. Like, I just want you to know there is so much hope in actually being able to help them release their pain for good. They get to return to their innocence. They get to be free. They don't have to remain stuck in those places anymore. And parts work will help them find their way out, and will help the love in you find its way to them, so they can meet and heal, and you can spend the rest of your life free.